And this is Dr. Leonard Hardell, who worked on DDT, Agent Orange, and many environmental exposures. And he has been publishing and giving talks. You can look him up online, read his papers stating RF, EMF, radio frequency, electromagnetic fields should be regarded as carcinogenic to humans, classifying it as a group 1 according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IR classification. And he has an organization, the Environment and Cancer Research Foundation, where you can also see his papers and so forth. The cancer is actually just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation and wireless radiation. There's many studies finding genotoxicity, damage to memory, sperm and reproduction impacts, synergistic effects, so that the toxins that we're exposed to every day in our food, in our air, that it can be even more impactful when you have the combined exposure of a known carcinogen and non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation, wireless radiation. And there's studies that have looked at very, very low levels of cell phone radiation, combined it with ionizing radiation, and found a increased tumors in the animals that were exposed to both at one time. And yet what we're told is that there's going to be more enjoyment, more sharing, Wi-Fi for everyone. Now, the European Parliament has a study, Health Impact of 5G, which you can go online and just search it and you'll find it. And there's also talks by Dr. Fiorello Belpoggi about this paper. And their conclusions were for the commonly used frequencies that are used in 2G and 3G and 4G, that they are probably carcinogenic, not possibly, probably, and in particular related to gliomas and acoustic neuromas. And there are reproductive developmental effects, which it says these frequencies clearly affect male fertility and possibly female fertility too. And they may have possible adverse effects on the development of embryos, fetuses, and newborns. And there is several studies that we have on our website, Environmental Health Trust, on latest reviews on impacts to fertility and the endocrine system. And it really is quite extensive, the literature that's been amassed. And at this point, all they have to do is put these shiny screens up and people salivate. I mean, we're addicted to these devices and completely uninformed about the science and what you can do to make technology safer, because there's so many things we could do. It doesn't have to be all wireless all the time. In fact, these very devices we can use in much safer ways with Ethernet cords and wires, and they don't have to be that we're always being radiated all the time. Dr. Deborah Davis, who's president of Environmental Health Trust, has a very important book, Disconnect, and several other books, of course, The Secret History of the War on Cancer. If you haven't read that, I so recommend that incredible history of the many environmental exposures we're exposed to and how authorities have known safer technologies and how, that organic food was safer and so forth. And yet that's all been pushed aside, and we're focused on treatments rather than prevention. But Disconnect, The Truth About Cell Phone Radiation, is an incredible book about wireless radiation and the wargaming of the science. And we're also right now doing an update to that, which will take us through 5G and Wi-Fi and to the current to current times. But you can read this book and read about all the scientists whose science has been attacked when they find effects. And highly recommend this book. There has been decades of research. And yet here we are. I have two daughters who are teenagers. This is a typical situation. Maybe there'd be even more devices. You got the laptop on the lap, the cell phone right in front of the face, cell phones pressed against the abdomen. And where can we go where we don't see devices in our children's hands or in our hands? And yet, remember, when cigarettes were presented as fresh, and physicians would promote cigarettes, and it's promoted for pregnant women. In fact, they would talk about how, hey, maybe women want babies with low birth weight. This advertisement says, taste isn't the only reason I smoke. People are always telling me that smoking causes low birth weight. Talk about a win-win. An easy labor, a slim baby, and the full flavor of Winston's. So this same story is being repeated again. And the book Captured Agency by Harvard compares the wireless industry to the tobacco industry. The United States Federal Communications Commission, that's the agency that is tasked to be addressing this issue, is a captured agency, argues this report by Harvard. There's a revolving door between industry and government, and US Congress receives millions from industry. In fact, if you have, I think many people on the call have gone to their elected officials to raise this issue, and yet we don't hear anything about it. Nothing is happening at the federal level, which it should be. We should be talking about this in all the hearings. Why, when there's an oversight hearing for the FCC, why aren't we hearing about the ignoring that's happening about this health and environmental risk? The wireless companies are using the same playbook as big tobacco. Now, here's an example of how captured the FCC is. You have Ajit Pai, former FCC chair, former counsel for Verizon; Brendan Carr, FCC commissioner, former lawyer for Wiley Ryan, who represented the industry, the wireless industry, when the wireless industry sued the city of San Francisco for their cell phone right to know law. And then Jonathan Adelstein, who used to be an FCC commissioner, now CEO of the Wireless Infrastructure Association. Meredith Baker, who's now head of the Wireless Association, the most largest wireless industry lobby group in the United States, and former FCC commissioner. Michael Powell, former FCC commissioner, and now CEO of the NCTA, and Tom Wheeler, who previous to Ajit Pai was the FCC chair, who was the former chief lobbyist for the CTIA Wireless Association. So it's this revolving door, and this happens at every level, at local and state levels as well. So the Harvard report concludes that consumer safety, health, and privacy, along with consumer wallets, have all been overlooked, sacrificed, or rated due to unchecked industry influence. And it's these hardball tactics that we call 20th century big tobacco tactics. And that's Norm Alster, who is the reporter for the Harvard Center for Ethics. And it's not just the United States, by the way. So this is the former CEO of Vodafone, telecommunication company, and he's now Italy's Minister for Technological Innovation and Digital Transition. And here you have him as the head of Vodafone accepting an award, and here he was on the board of directors of the Verizon, the company Verizon, which took over an area of Vodafone. Then we have Paul Fletcher, former director of corporate and regulatory affairs for Optus. That's an Australian telecommunications company. Now, Australia's Minister for Communications, Urban Infrastructure, Cities and the Arts. Abdullah Mohammed, who worked for telecom companies for years before he was appointed General Manager, National Communications Authority of Somalia. In fact, I could have gone on. I found myself digging into this right before this talk and had to take a pause on that, but it just goes on and on and on.